Hi, Yonah. Here is Abba. And so our Shavuot learning tomorrow night is based upon this great phrase, Yesh Ratsui v'yesh Matsui. There is an ideal and there is reality. And we're kind of talking about the relationships and their, at times, messiness. Particularly, we're speaking, obviously, about our relationship to Hashem and the ideals of that relationship and the messy reality. But I thought that we would actually look at other relationships and their messiness as well. And obviously, the story that Aaron presented about Rav and Rav Chanina is a really great one to kind of help explore this issue. So, of course, just to remind you about the story. Ayal entered Ata Rav Chia. So Rav Chia entered. This is all happening while Rav is teaching about the Torah portion before Rav Yehuda Hanasi. Rav Chia enters and Hadar Laresha. Rav returns to the beginning of his teaching. Ayal Bar Kapara enters. Hadar Laresha. Rav returns to the beginning. Ata Rav Shimon Barabi. Rabbi Shimon bar Rabbi enters. Hadar Laresha. Rav returns to the beginning. Ata Rav Chanina bar Chama. Rav Chanina bar Chama enters, and Rav says, Kule Hai Nehadar. I have to actually, all of these times, I have to go back and start again. Lo Hadar. He doesn't go back. Ifkid Rav Chanina. Rav Chanina is upset. Azar Rav legabe tleisar me'ale yome dikipure. So Rav goes before Rav Chanina asking for forgiveness. 13 Erev Yom Kippurs, and Rav uh, Rav Rav Chanina bar Chama lo afyais. Rav Chanina bar Chama does not forgive Rav. So the question that we are going to obviously be asking are a few of them, but the first question really talks about asking the question, one, and if you can stop right here, and I would ask kind of what are the big questions that we are asking, and hopefully the group can ask um, the two questions that really the Gemara is going to ask. So see if people can come up with it first. The first question of A, why does Rav go so often and ask for forgiveness? And B, why does Rav Chanina bar Chama not forgive? Obviously, to make matters worse, we know that there is a Jewish law that says all you need to do is ask for forgiveness 3 times. And after that, it is the person who keeps on saying no that they now, the tables have turned, they now have to ask for forgiveness for being so cold, stone hearted. So, of course, the Gemara first piece they're going to say um, is is how could Rava do this? He only needs to ask for forgiveness 3 times. And the Gemara defends this answer by saying, Rav is Rav. He was a big wig, a big deal already, standing at the front of the academy. He, expects more from the act of tshuva and knows it's not an easy act, and he goes ahead and he's different. Rav is different. So you might want to ask also the group, what do you think that means that Rav is different? And then after they feel like, well, we've justified why Rav kind of went back over and over and over again. Now we've got they're asking about Rav Chanina, and of course they're going to ask Rav Chanina, saying, this guy went 13 times on Erev Yom Kippur. Like the guy's going off to think about, like off to shul, and who's standing at their door? It's Rav saying, don't you please forgive me at this point. And Rav Chanina basically is walking into Yom Kippur with the kind of the knowledge of being so cold-hearted and not forgiving. So why would Rav Chanina ever do that at all? So you can stop and ask the group that question as well. And the Talmud is going to come up with an answer. And actually, to really help us understand this Talmud piece even more, well, we can look at it in 2 ways. First of all, we can look at it without this little piece of knowledge that Rav Chanina basically at some point in these 13 years when Rav keeps on going back, I'm not sure if it's year 1, year 10, year what, it keeps on going back. At what point Rav Yehuda the Nasi, dies, and who is the next person to become the head of the academy, the head of like the Nasi, the head, kind of the head bigwig of Judaism at the time? It's Rav Chanina. Rav Chanina, and we have there's another piece of Talmud that actually says that Rav Yehuda Nasi dies, Rav Chanina is appointed. So Rav Chanina sees in a dream that Rav will become the head of a yeshiva, and he says, since Rav will eventually become the head of the yeshiva, I will not forgive him, so that he stays angry, and he is so angry that he won't stay around here. He'll go run off somewhere else. He will go and study Torah in Babylonia. So the question is that how does that justify Rabbi Hanina? Now, by knowing, by the way, that he is the Nasi at the time, we have a different scenario altogether. Because let's pretend for a second that we don't know that he's a Nasi, that we just think he has a dream, that here we have Rav becoming a great, that Rabbi Hanina has a dream that Rav is becoming is going to become the head of a yeshiva. So obviously, if he's the head of the yeshiva, he's like, oh my goodness, wait a second, he's going to take my position, right? If Rav Chanina was the head of a yeshiva. But let's just suppose he wasn't the head of a yeshiva, and maybe you don't need to tell the group that at the beginning, and you can just ask, is it right for Rav Chanina to say, here is a great scholar, and I want Torah to spread to other places? If I get if I embarrass basically Rob and make him walk around knowing that he's not forgiven, he's going to run off and he's going to become the head of a yeshiva somewhere else, right? And in that way, Torah will have spread. So if we go with that, then we're saying actually Rav Chanina may have actually been thinking about, how do I get actually Torah to spread? I'm not going to ask Rav to go move somewhere else. But if I can try a trick that helps Rav go somewhere else, that pushes him a little bit to go somewhere else, I will in fact have spread Torah. And isn't that what we want? That the word of Torah, that there are great teachers everywhere. Now, in that sense, you can look at Rav Chanina and say, wow, Rav Chanina, you really did a great thing in your doing a bad thing. So, right, maybe Rav Chanina, the ends of what you did justify the means. And this can be a great discussion that the class that can have. But now we have this other information that actually maybe when Rav Chanina, when Rav comes before Rav Chanina, it's not just any Rav Chanina, it is the head of the Nasi. It is the head of the Jewish people at the time. And Rav keeps on coming back and saying, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. And all of a sudden, Rav Chanina does not forgive. And now all of a sudden, maybe it's not just to spread Torah, but if Rav Chanina has a dream that actually Rav is going to become the head of an academy, all of a sudden Rav is thinking, oh my goodness, there's only one academy in town. Where is he going to become the head? He's going to become the head of the academy right here. I got to get this guy away from me, because if he becomes the head, then I'm demoted. Maybe even I'm dead, right? So Rav Chanina is almost trying to save his life. So the question is, now all of a sudden, does this get a little complicated? But by the way, once we know that Rav Chanina becomes the Nasi, does that actually change the story in the beginning for us, right? All of a sudden, all these people walk in, and there's one, and Rav kind of goes back and says, you're important enough to return, to kind of go ahead. You're important enough that I'm going to start from the beginning. But Rav Chanina Bar Chama comes in, and now that we know that he's almost next in line, that people are looking at him being, when Rebbe dies, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi dies, this guy's going to be the head. And all of a sudden, Rav basically rejects him, says, you're actually not as important as we think. So does that actually change the story itself? Does the fact that Rav Chanina is a Nasi, does that change the idea of why Rav came so many time after time after time? or maybe actually the first couple of times he wasn't Nasi and now he actually is Nasi. Does that change the reasons why maybe Rav might have come to Rav Chanina like, oh, you didn't have status, so at first I would have stopped at 3, but once I know you're the Nasi, I really want you to forgive me, and this is a really important relationship. I want to get right, and I keep on getting it wrong, and you're showing me I'm getting it wrong by not forgiving me, so I'm going to keep on coming back. So it actually complicates the issue a little bit. So I mean, I think we need to look at this idea of Rav Chanina in two different ways. One is, suppose Rav Chanina is just a stam rabbi, right? Just a stam rabbi, and kind of says, "Oh, I have a dream that this guy Rav is going to be a great, great teacher. If I can piss him off, he'll go to another. He'll be so embarrassed to be living around me. He'll go somewhere else, and actually, I will have spread Torah." So that's a question of like, do the ends justify the means? But now we have the idea of Rav Chanina almost being a little bit pettier than that, saying like, I don't want Rav to be the head of the yeshiva here because he will take my spot. And all of a sudden, I'm not going to forgive him because of that reason. And that seems to be a little petty on Rav Chanina, and we can hold him guilty. The more interesting question is really the first one of like, if I'm spreading Torah, is that the best? Is that a good thing? And can I do something bad for the end goal of really spreading Torah? And so, really, what I want to look at here is obviously like if Shavuot is about our relationship between ourselves and Hashem, and the idea of can we can we do wrong in order to make that relationship closer, or can we do things that are actually slightly selfish on our part, when if the end result is that actually relationships with Hashem will be actually closer, right? Even if we say Rav Chanina was the Nasi at the time, even if we say Rav Chanina didn't want to lose that position and that's why he sends Rav away, we can still say, oh, well, actually, more Torah was in the world because we had a great teacher in Babylonia and not just in Eretz Yisrael. So actually, that's a good thing, even if he's doing it for very petty, very personal reasons. Those are the things that I think are worth exploring here. I'll print out kind of the general story, and good luck with it.